Welcome to Offline Guys podcast. I'm your host, Bias, and if you know me personally, you know that I really like to talk. Hence, I decided to start a podcast that explores and documents the adventures and personal growth of graffiti artists, both here in South Africa and abroad. This is the first podcast that South Africa has to offer doing graffiti interviews. And every episode, we'll be interviewing a new local or international artist. Hi guys, welcome to Offline Guys podcast. On this episode, we have quite an old school on and off writer called Rusty. He's from the States. He writes for RUSTE NBC and HI. He's been painting since about 2003, on and off, as I said. And I would say that you're a fairly well-known writer, and very excited to speak to you and have you on the podcast. I mean, I had you come over to Africa and chill with me for I don't know what it was. It was like 4 days where we painted something like 10 to 12 pieces, which is cool. But yeah, it was an awesome time. So welcome to the podcast, dude.
Yeah, appreciate you having me. And yeah, that was an epic trip. Epic, once in a lifetime for me, going halfway around the world. And the fact we got that much painting in, along with all the touristy stuff, you might say, was definitely epic.
Well, I am a tour guide, so took you to paint a chrome 20 minutes off the plane.
Yeah, it was
Right?
it was it
Yeah.
was airport to wall, absolutely. Tunnel, actually.
jet lag.
Yeah.
Jet lag straight to wall. Yeah.
Set the tone.
Um
Set the tone for the trip.
my first question to you is your name is Rusty now. What was your name before that? Like, what was your first ever graffiti name?
Oh my God.
I
What
don't
a
know if I told you
question.
mine. It's always a
Uh,
laugh. Everyone always laughs.
Mine's quite embarrassing. I had you know, before I really understood, I had all kinds of names. But one that I guess stuck for a little bit was Coca, Koca. And it was funny because, and I think I've told this story elsewhere, but I did meet a guy who wrote Cola with the
Oh,
Kola, and we were supposed to do a Coca-Cola production, and
no, bro. No,
never
bro.
happened, thank God. But yeah, that was my first uh real name that I had, I guess, if you want to
Coca
call
with a
it that.
C. C-O-C-A.
K Koca.
K-O-C.
Yeah, it's just
Well, my
terrible.
first name was Alfonso. 7 letters. Like, why? Do you ever write any alternate names now with like what you paint? Or do you only write
I
Rusty?
don't I no side names. I mean, I might I've done occasional like friends names. I think I did your name one time or a couple times even when I was there in South
Yeah, yeah.
Africa. And I'll do friends names in my style from time to time, but I don't have like a side name per se.
Okay. And so tell us a little bit about now, like how you started, um, sort of the side of the world you were brought up in, like how you got into graffiti, like the exact thing that drew you to graffiti. Was it like, did you see it on a train where you just tripped over it? It was like a school thing, or like,
No, no, I'll give you the background.
I'm also really
I,
interested in some of the American, like culture and like graffiti history, because I imagine that you're pretty old school and you've like come back into it, a number of times. I'd say that these days you're pretty much in it. You're pretty in it, and you roll with some really old school hitters that know a lot about the history. So I imagine by proxy you would as well.
yeah, so I mean, I guess if you really want to get back to the true origin, my grandfather was a very accomplished artist,
Hmm.
um, who dabbled in many mediums. And I'm fortunate that I grew up in an era without cell phones and Netflix and really much TV. Um,
I think that's
so
fortunate.
yes, yes, very fortunate.
Yeah.
So a lot of my spare time and weekends was spent with either my grandfather or just drawing and sketching and painting. And I'm originally from Massachusetts in the
Ah.
States and New England. So
Where is that? Where is that in, like on the continent? Is
it's
that like northeast, southwest?
northeast, it's
Okay.
northeast, maybe 5 hours below Canada,
Okay.
below
Yeah.
Montreal.
Yeah.
Uh, 4 hour drive east of New York. So very close to New York, and really just driving around uh the Mass Pike, which was bombed and never buffed at the time. This is late 90s, and commuter rail. So seeing all, as a kid, we would take the
Track
train
side.
into the city and you would just see graffiti, and it just always caught my eye and was like, who is doing this? And it was just very attracted to like what kind of person would go somewhere they're not supposed to write these names. I didn't even understand like
Yeah.
quite. I recognized that, oh, that's the same person, but I didn't really understand it, but was interested in it. And then probably, so I've found like graffiti sketches of mine dated from 97 and 98. But
Damn.
my first ever painting was a trackside Amtrak line piece, uh, is from 2001,
Hmm.
uh, I believe 2002,
Okay.
probably more
Pretty early.
2002, 2001, sometime in that range. Painted
Right.
pretty actively until 2007, 5, 7. Uh, I got busted a bunch of times, and I
Oh
kind of
shit.
life was also just taking me in a different direction at the time, and just kind of
So you
got
like
away
stopped for a
from
little bit
it.
because of that?
Yeah,
Just
but
like
I
phasing
stopped
out a little bit, but it's
phasing
impossible to
out.
quit,
Yeah, but
right?
at this time, for those who were around, might remember 12-ounce Profit and Art
Of
Crimes,
course.
which
I
were
love them.
two graffiti blogs, forums online. So the thing
I've
with me
spoken
was,
about art crimes a lot.
yeah,
Yeah.
classics. And there
Classic.
was a few other Bombing Science was a blog and
Yeah.
I never stopped kind of checking in on those forums and blogs and magazines. Graph mags were still big, and I always stayed a fan, right? So although I wasn't active, I was still maintaining an eye on what was going on, who was doing what.
Did Did you ever look at the Mook Life blog from
I'm
Montreal?
not familiar with that one.
It's by Killer F. Get into it later. Okay.
Sure, sure.
So you were still like
And
kind of on the scene, just like watching from a distance and still appreciating it. It's kind of like maybe
yeah, for
former
sure.
skateboarders. Like I used to skate. I still watch loads of skating stuff.
Same,
I
right?
just
Same.
know I can't do it because I'm going to break all my bones.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then in 2010, uh, I moved into this Boston proper, and obviously graffiti very prevalent in the city, especially the neighborhood I was living in, and ended up running into some writers doing a production that was hell's. rest in peace. And I believe he was with Lost. And yeah, got to know those guys, started hanging around, coming to do walls, and then eventually they were kind of like, "Yo, why don't you paint?" And then one day
Again.
brought some brought some cans and
Sweet.
never looked back. So when I when I say on and off, it was really just this off period from like '05 to 2010, but after 2010, never looked back again.
Okay. I mean, that's great. And you met like a lot of good writers in Boston, obviously. Because, wait, you met Gesser in Boston?
No,
Oh,
I
he's not in
met
Boston, Mitch. I don't know. I
no, he's
forget.
not. He's painted in Boston a lot, but not from there. But I was painting with a few different people.
And it
Epic,
was the crew,
Epic,
was the.
and it was just a bunch of local high school friends. So so I moved from Boston to Connecticut, which is where I linked up with Rio, who
Oh,
had
yeah,
started.
bro.
Yeah,
Big shout
Rio.
outs to Rio. I'm just going to say it myself. Super big fan. Rio,
Yeah.
if Rio's listening, you gotta send this to Rio, bro. Man has to come back. I know that he never left, but he's
Oh,
amazing.
he still
He's
lurks in the
amazing, bro.
shadows for sure, painting and doing his thing. But I randomly met him at a wall in Connecticut, and he was shocked that I knew who he was, and I was
He's a
shocked that
legend.
he like would be shocked by that because I'm like, dude,
I saw
you
him at one
know,
of the most early graphitisms, in fact.
yeah, graphotism, and he would be at that Birmingham skate park gym, and High Crew was pretty well known in where I was from, and definitely had through the magazines, and a bit of an international presence. So yeah, started hanging and painting with him, and ultimately got put down with High Crew, and then NBC came around when I ultimately moved out to California, and I actually
What
started
does
painting
NBC stand for?
Notorious Bombing Crew, Never
Cool.
Been Caught,
Awesome.
uh, all kinds of good names. But I started painting in Mexico a lot
Yes.
with
I really
with
want to know about
Scope.
Mexico because I actually
Yeah,
really want to know your thoughts on the differences between Mexico and South Africa to a degree. But we'll get to South Africa just now. So you can continue telling me more of your sort of painting
yeah,
career
no,
story.
started painting with Scope a lot in Tijuana, TJ, and then I was in LA a bunch, and then in Miami, I randomly ran into one of Scope's homies, Alec, and started painting with him in LA, and then yeah, ended up joining NBC, which is mostly a West Coast LA based crew, but now has roots in Mexico and other parts of the country and world as well. So, super cool to be a part of that. Very motivated group of guys. So,
Can we speak a little bit about Scove as well as,
yo.
let's say, more like NBC mentality? Let's talk a little bit about going big because I mean, this you and Chems inspired the shit out of me, and I think a lot of people to be like, let's go do big chromos, like like the highest, the tallest, widest, biggest chrome you can do. Like where did that even come from? You and Scope does these massive pieces, and I've seen so many comments that people are like, how does he do this in the day? I'm like, I don't know, maybe that's Mexico. But how did these
Y-
giant chromes come around, man? Because I remember this is when I
So
sort of started talking to you a bit, and you're like, take it higher,
I
just do it
I
bigger.
I gotta give that to Chems, when I linked back up with him, and so I had met and been painting with him a little bit back in like those early days, like '03, '04, something like this. And then I ran into him at a wall in like, I don't know, 2012 or something. And we remembered each other and started painting. And he was like, we went to this I remember this. We went to an abandoned spot, and he's like, yeah, I'm gonna paint this giant chrome. And I just like didn't even understand what he was talking about. He was like, yeah, you should try it too.
Hmm.
And I did, and it was a lot of fun, and it was a lot harder. A lot of people look at these wild style pieces, which are, burners, whatever. Those are difficult in their own way, but these big chromes, they're physically demanding, and
Hmm.
they're a lot harder than I think people think. For one, just finding a
Yeah,
spot where you can execute something of this scale, and then
yeah.
two, understanding like the height to width ratio, and mapping it out, and
Mm. Like
it's
consistent
it's
lines and stuff.
it's tough, getting your
Yeah,
the letter weight and the
yeah.
spacing when you're going that big. We're not using projectors or grids or whatever these people are
Nah,
doing
bro.
these days, so
Nah.
I got hooked. It was super fun, super cool, and it was a change up from just these colorful pieces. And then the hunt was on. To me, it wasn't just
I was on
about,
for the spots that
yeah,
stay.
it wasn't just
Yeah,
about executing the chrome. It was about finding the spots and linking with
yeah.
people and traveling to do these. That became for me more of it than actually painting the chrome.
Yeah, because I remember you did a couple of these big chromes, and then you had like a legal wall you would do like big chromes at, and then you had like, you guys went on this trip or whatever to it's somewhere in the desert where there's all these abandoned buildings, and then everyone's just painting fucking giant chromes everywhere. It's like, hey, just the whole trip is just chrome. We're just gonna chrome everything. Like that shit's awesome because it shows real style. Like you can work on your style because it's like as you say, you're working on letter weight, line weight, and it's just one flat color. So it's chrome will always be
Yeah,
like a stylish color because it's just you can't hide. It's just chrome and
you
black.
can't
It's the
hide it.
best.
And the other thing to me is I've always wanted my stuff to be legible.
Yeah,
New England, in my opinion, has a more legible style, and the way I was kind of brought up, if you will, was like, hey, if you're painting and a train or a car is going by at 50 miles an hour,
yeah.
you want people to know who it is and what it
Who it is?
says.
Yeah, yeah. So, what was the graffiti like in Massachusetts? Like when you were growing up, was it? Because I know that in America, you guys have like a very sort of quite a variance in style between place to place. Like in
Yeah,
some
well,
places, people
the
just have
internet,
massive tags, like top to bottom. But like, what's
yeah,
Massachusetts like?
the internet's kind of destroyed that, but back
Yeah.
back, you had styles based on geography, right? So like
Yes,
you could spot a
that's what
writer
I'm saying. Like you could spot a
and
LA
say
rider,
that, yes, that guy's from LA, that guy's from New York, this
definitely.
guy's from
Yeah.
Boston, this guy's from, wherever. So yeah, it was cool to see, but I think it's great taking little bits from each
Hmm.
area and kind of making it your own. Uh, you know, Biting,
So
if you will,
how
but
how would you describe your own style now?
I like to be super colorful and high contrast and just kind of funky, kind of loose, simple, but I've also been getting a little bit more into these like really rendered 3Ds, where I'll have literally up to like five different shades and tones within
Do you know
the
what's really
outline. And
interesting? Is
what's
that
that?
um like here in South Africa and maybe in Europe as well, a lot of people don't know what rendered 3D means. I've seen like Chems post it and be like, I did a rendered 3D on this, and it's like vector basically. Um, and
See, to
and
me, vector is different than
different,
rendered.
really.
And
Well, this is the funniest thing, is because in
I was
Canada, when I was in
traveling.
Canada,
No, I was just gonna say it's funny to hear you say that because I was traveling and painting with a buddy, and I looked and I was like, "Oh, cool, you're doing a vector 3D." And he looks at me, he's like, "The hell is that?" And I was like, "It's what you're doing." And
yeah,
he was
yeah,
like, I've never heard that." Like he didn't
regional,
even know had heard the term like vector used in that way. And to me, vector is like it's not blending, it's not
yeah,
fading colors, it's just like
yeah.
hard
It's hard
shadows.
shapes. Yes, it's
Yeah.
like starting the inner part is like light, and then you're going darker, darker, darker as you go out, something like that. In a circle or in a square, whatever. What's interesting to me is that when I was in Canada, everyone had different things for this. So I would say to people, I'm going to do a barcode 3D. And then they would say, "What's that, man?" And I'm like, "Barcode? You know what a barcode is on like any product, like a barcode?" They're like, "Oh, that makes so much sense. We call it piano key here." I'm like, piano key? Because it's black, white, black, white. I'm like, that's so weird. And I've heard all this stuff about second lines and key lines, and they call it,
Oh, and
in, I heard in
the
Australia they call it gay barrier.
the
The
universal, right? I think they call it up there. Yeah,
universal, really.
Canada's got some weird terminology for sure.
But in Australia they call it the gay barrier. It keeps the gay away from your piece. Can you believe that? Like, what the fuck? Dude, it's wild. It's really interesting. That's why I ask about regional style, because there's regional style and regional sort of things to talk about to do with style, I suppose.
So the force field, if you will, or the
Force field.
final. So
Yeah.
I
Second line.
refer to it as either a force field or a final, the outline that borders the whole thing. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. It's just funny because sometimes I would say to someone, like, do
You
your
do that
second line.
well. You do the
Thanks.
sticker effect where you do the thick white um
Yeah.
final
Yeah.
force field, whatever you want to call it, and you'll even peel it back in a corner, making it
Yeah.
look
Yeah.
like someone's ripping it off. I think that's really cool.
It is cool. The only problem with it is that you can't do white outlines while you're doing that effect, which I haven't done like a white outline piece in a couple of years. And I'm just like, fuck, I really should. But anyway, it's fine. So let's talk a little bit about traveling and like some of the places you've been, because you mentioned you came from near Canada, and you and I have a lot of like um similar, like we know a lot of similar people from Canada, for example. Like you've been to Toronto
I think
and
we
I guess Montreal as well. I mean, we we,
gotta give Tenso a shout
we
out
give
right now,
Tenso, yeah, yeah, of course, because
Yeah,
he's the tour guide for Toronto. Well,
uh
he's just a man,
Montreal.
dude.
Yeah, yeah. So
Yeah.
Montreal was my first exposure to Canada, and I've been up to Montreal quite a bit. And
Speak
then
any
on some
French?
of those, no, I don't speak any French. And then on some of those trips, guys from Toronto would be there and they'd be like, "Hey, you got to come to Toronto." So,
Yeah.
uh, yeah, those are the only two cities that I've been to. I do want to get to Vancouver, as I'm told there's a pretty good scene there as well, but uh no, I haven't been. I haven't
So, have you
been. And
traveled quite
then
a bit around the states? Yeah.
oh yeah, yeah, I've painted in good amount. I had a list going at one time. I think so. There's 50 states, right? I think I've painted in maybe like 20 of them, I want to say.
Oh wow.
Um,
Okay. It's a lot. And you've
it's
also
a good
been
amount.
to Puerto Rico and France. I recall you were in France last time.
Yeah, I've been to Puerto Rico. I've been to, well, I've traveled many places. As
Yeah.
far as places I've traveled and painted,
Yeah.
unfortunately I don't get to paint on every single place I've been to, but I painted in Paris, Mexico City, Costa
Oh yeah.
Rica, um, Canada, we
Sa-
said,
South Africa.
Spain, Barcelona. Got to
Sick.
paint in Barcelona,
Sick.
Amsterdam, uh, South Africa, of course.
Yep.
And there might be a couple other random countries that I'm missing. But
it's it's okay. It's
but
not a
yeah, but
shout out roster.
the coolest
No
the
one's gonna miss it.
coolest
Yeah.
thing I gotta say about graffiti and the traveling is like there's writers, like I'll use Twick as an
Oh, I
example.
love
Twick is
Twick.
a
I'm
good,
gonna try and link with him on this next trip I'm doing.
yeah, he's a good homie of mine, and he's from Germany, right?
Yeah.
I I have never been to Germany, but
Yep.
I have painted with Twick maybe
Everywhere else.
like at least I've painted with him in Canada. I've painted with him in Florida. I've painted with him in Puerto Rico. I've painted with him in California.
Mm.
I painted with him in New York City. So like there's five different locations. I painted with a guy from Germany who lives in Germany
Yeah.
that I've painted with, but I've never been to Germany. So like
Yeah.
I love that about graffiti that you can meet writers from all over the world without necessarily having to travel there. Um,
Yeah, that's interesting.
so
Like you don't want
yeah,
if you don't want to go to Germany, dude. It's
yeah.
okay. Are you sure Twick is from Germany? Because I've also tried to link with him twice now, and he's been like, "Sorry, unavailable." Maybe he actually
Yeah,
lives in Florida. We don't fucking know.
it's true. I
I
guess
don't know, but
conspiracies.
he's awesome. I saw one of his pieces when I was in Germany on my last trip, and it was just so awesome, bro.
Yeah,
Great
super
pieces, man.
talented guy.
Great
Super
pieces.
talented.
Yeah. So let's talk a bit about South Africa and like why you because on this podcast I want to talk to artists that have been here. I want to know what it's like, what it was like for you before you came here, what you heard about it, and then how you kind of experienced it when you were here. Because I also imagine you were with me in Joburg. Johannesburg is a rough, gritty city, and then you went to Cape Town, which is like a soft pony fucking paradise place for
Uh,
hipsters.
all
Like
right.
it's beautiful,
So
but there's no graffiti.
I was going to South Africa for reasons outside of graph, but because it was such a like a once in a lifetime opportunity, I was like, yo, I gotta go link with my man Bias and I gotta experience this.
We're gonna see how many people after this message you on your Instagram and say, "Yo, dude, where is South Africa?" This is an American thing, for real.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me.
Do lions walk the
But
streets? Yes, they do.
it it is it is an incredible place. It's beautiful. To compare it, like you asked about like Mexico, like
Mexico, yeah.
to me, there are some similarities, but I feel the danger level of Joburg is way beyond Mexico. Like nothing I've ever
Wow.
seen. And so I consider of everywhere I've traveled and painted in the States, Baltimore. in my opinion, is just one of the most dangerous places. But relative to like Joburg specifically, I
Hmm.
don't even think it compares, you
It's
know? But fortunately, I had a great experience with you where like we
I
didn't
didn't rob
really,
you.
you didn't rob me. I left with my cell phone, you know, and like we, for the most part, I think there were one or two kind of sketchy
Yeah.
instances, but,
We
and
took you
we were doing all
intentionally
kinds
to
of
a sketchy
stuff.
instance. We said to our friends, "Yo, we're gonna take him through that dodgy part of town, right?" And I can remember you going through and being like, "It's not that bad, dude." And then one block later, going, "What the fuck, dude? Put the windows up, dude. I'm hiding my shit." Like, what is this?
It's It's definitely a place
Yeah.
too, though, that like if you just got dropped there, you might not like understand. Like I remember, I think it was my
Mm,
last day there. We were doing like, some street side spots, and like
yeah.
this car was like potentially tailing us. And
We saw that
if you
crackhead once.
weren't,
We were doing one crime. There's a
yeah,
crackhead just hanging around. Yeah.
and if you're not like aware of your surroundings and kind of, I could see some people very easily getting caught up in some really bad situations.
So what you're saying is like before you went to South Africa, you were like, well, I heard it's dangerous. From Johannesburg, you learned that it is dangerous, and then moving on to Cape Town, it was I'm interested in that because I wasn't there, so I don't know, and I'm not you.
Dude, going from Joburg to Cape Town, I mean, for people from the States, that would be like going from LA or New York to like Hawaii. Okay, like it's not an island, okay? Cape Town's not an island, but like the best I could compare it to is like being on a tropical island, palm trees, nice restaurants, beaches, mountains. Like it definitely
Wildlife,
has, yeah, like Hawaii type vibes, if you will.
mm.
Um, and
No
like
graffiti.
zero graffiti. I think I put two stickers up.
You get removed
Uh,
very quickly.
but I only put them where I saw other stickers because I would, well, that's not
Yeah.
true. I put a couple others up, but it's very clean and very feels safe. I still, at night, not sure there's
Mm.
places you want to
Can
be.
actually, would you mind like maybe even telling Americans that, like in Johannesburg, can you remember that I said we're not going out to go bombing at night because it's not safe?
I was actually just about to speak about that to you, is I
Yeah,
was like, oh yeah, I think I said to you like,
yeah.
oh, I can't wait to like not just go bombing at night, but I think I was like, hey, we can like go bar hopping and like I do recall we went to one bar and you like paid a guy to mind the car. You like kicked him like,
Oh yeah, yeah. It's like
you
50 cents
know,
or whatever for you.
a- and it's just like I didn't understand why we weren't going out at night painting, but then when I saw during the day, like
Mm,
Joburg during the day is more dangerous than like East LA at night, right?
mm.
So like it
So at
then,
night it must be crazy. Yeah,
yeah. So I was
fuck
like,
yeah.
okay, I get it.
No, we just bomb in
But
the day, man.
and I also
Safer.
I remember, you would know we were in a very dodgy part of town during the day, and I remember
Yeah.
saying to you, Bias, if I got out of the car and started walking down the street, I was like, how far do you think I could make it before I got robbed? Or like something went down, and you were like, dude, maybe 2 blocks.
I mean,
I was
there's a
like,
story. We had a guy come from Australia. I can't. He writes as uh, Tubby. He was staying in like kind of that area we painted near with the train coming on top. And he decided to walk to the graffiti store, and he got robbed on the way there and on the way back. And it's just like someone told him you could walk through the city center. It's not true, dude. Not true. Don't do that. Yeah, it's crazy. But how was Cape Town for you? Like, did you like see a lot of animals and
Yeah, no,
like
it's beautiful, and we did your buddy, uh I forget his name, but the driver that you
oh yeah,
referred us to,
uh, I can't remember right now. Something with an F though.
man,
It's like Francis or something.
something. He took us
He's a
around,
tour
and
guide.
like it's crazy because like in the States, and I've lived both rural places and urban places, if you see like a fox or a mountain lion, like that's a big deal. You're like, whoa, like, you know, you might see coyotes, deer, a bear potentially, but like, we're driving and like an ostrich is like, and to me, an ostrich is like a prehistoric bird,
Yeah,
like
yeah. They're fucking weird.
eh, just like what? Like you're just driving
It's
down the
just
street, you
there.
get a wild ostrich, and there was like driving back, there was like a baboon in the road that we like, you know, to him, he was probably just like, oh yeah, whatever, these stupid baboons in the way. But we were like, oh my God. And then
You must watch out.
he's
The
telling
baboons
us
in
how
Cape Town have knives and guns and shit, dude. You must be careful.
well, dude, he's
They'll
telling us
steal
his
your shit.
neighbor gets robbed by these all the time, like
Yeah,
bringing
yeah.
bringing groceries into the house from the
It's
car
a
to the house. The baboons would like rob them for their groceries, and so it's just crazy, like just things you couldn't fathom happening here in the States. But yeah, the wildlife is
like
incredible. The
raccoons.
landscape is incredible. The ocean against the mountains, and just there's a lot of natural beauty there that is incredible to see.
I just want to go back. My producer is telling me that I should talk to you a little bit about when we were in Johannesburg and we went to a bar and there was someone watching my car and I paid him to watch my car. That's
Yeah.
like a that's like a classic job here. It's called a car guard, and it started maybe 15, 20
Yeah, it
years
wasn't
ago.
like a random dude. I think he had a vest
It's
on or
just like they have like
something.
a vest on and they're just like they say they'll watch your car, and if someone's going to steal it, they'll fight them off. But most of the time, they run away. Or sometimes you get these guys who are just on the street and they're just drunk as hell, like, and they're like, "Give me, like $1, please." Like, it's kind of like glorified begging. It's like the second verse of begging in a weird way. But this is very normal. I don't understand it myself. I'm like, why do we need these people? Like, my car's a piece of shit. No one's gonna steal it. I don't need to pay someone to watch it. Like, it's fine. You know,
It- yeah, well, it's funny because like I've certainly been in neighborhoods where I've parked here in the States,
you're
and
like,
it's
fuck. I
like
wish someone would
your
watch my
car
car.
may or may not be there when you get back or something.
Hmm.
But I mean, look,
We
the things i anywhere in the world, things can happen, and
Yeah.
and you
On on
you
on
always
that note, could you tell me like a story about like maybe a crazy graph story? Everyone loves crazy graph stories. I love to tell them on here as well. Do you have any crazy graph stories that come to mind? Don't
yeah,
worry, it doesn't have to compare to South Africa, but if you have something that's like
no, no,
local
I
to
got I got
you
one
or
of my
like,
I got one
hell
of my
yeah.
favorites, and I've
I,
I've told this one many times, and I'm sure
you
people who
probably
know
told me.
me have heard it. I
It's
probably
okay.
told you, but again, going back to Baltimore,
Oh yeah.
we're we're painting in an abandoned school. This thing is completely bombed out. It's got the outside completely covered in grass and the inside completely covered in grass. And we're in there, and there's four of us painting, and then there's these two dudes happen to be in there, and they're BMX bikers. because there's a pool. There's an empty pool in the school, so they were biking in the pool,
Mm.
and we're painting, and these dudes, they were really good, but they weren't wearing helmets, and no matter how good you are, you
Oh.
can still fall. So one of the dudes
Yeah.
falls and like smashes his head. And the only
Oh,
reason I tell this is they had to leave because the dude got injured. And whatever way they left or how they left, somebody must have
seeing
seen
them.
them or whatever. We didn't know this. I mean, we knew they left. They said, like, hey, we're leaving. Our buddy's hurt. Like, we saw the whole thing go down. So,
Shit.
we keep painting. And, like, I don't know, maybe 20 minutes, 30 minutes later, like, we just hear, like, kind of some noise. And then all of a sudden, it's just like, freeze. And we turn around and I'm talking like SWAT team, like
SWAT.
cops in like tactical
Oh man.
gear, guns,
Yeah.
guns drawn, like get the fuck down, get the fuck down, like yelling commands to each other, like watch your six, like clear that room, just like
Fuck.
something like out of a movie. Now, one of the dudes with us was just a photographer, right? So he's got a black camera with an
Oh shit.
extended lens barrel, which
Barrel.
like could could be
Looks like a
mistaken
gun,
for
yeah.
a gun in a tense situation. So he's like, "Hey, this is a camera, camera." They didn't seem to. They're just get the fuck down, get the fuck down. So we're all down, sprawled out, and they then like radio in. They're like all clear, code four. So then like the sergeant or like the head dude comes in, and he's like, what are you guys doing here? And
Oh, we
and
just
we're like,
BMXing.
mind you, we're a couple of like middle-aged, like
White dudes or whatever.
dudes, white dudes in an all-black neighborhood in Baltimore,
Oh shit.
painting, and
Yeah.
and we're like painting. And the guy's like, "What?" And we're like, "Yeah, like we're here painting graffiti." And like the guy was like baffled.
Like who
And
the fuck
and I
called
tell
SWAT?
I tell this story because of what happens here now. The guy's like, "Yo, it's way too dangerous for you guys to be in here
Oh
painting."
shit. Oh
And it
shit.
it went from like the police coming at us for,
What are you doing?
you know, doing something wrong to like, "Oh, we're here to protect you." And they literally were like, "Yeah, we're gonna escort you out of the building, make sure you get out of here okay." And like it,
Wow.
it just completely flipped.
Wow.
And he was very upset with us. Not that we were painting graffiti, but that we were here. And he really like looked us in the eye and just had that like look of like, you can't be here. And then come to find out, talking with more of these guys, like apparently like they had a double homicide here last week. Like people get
Fuck.
it's like both a
Fuck.
place where people like go to get killed or like they drop bodies off. Like it's just, you know, not
Dude.
a place in we just should not have been there according to this guy. And
Wow.
he was like, I don't ever want to see you around here again, having not because of like, I don't want you tagging my neighborhood or paint. It's
I
like,
want you to be safe.
it's too dangerous. I want you guys to be safe. Like, don't come here. Like, nothing good's gonna
Wow.
happen to you guys. So I found that the irony of
You
that.
ever had you ever had anyone say to you like, "Hey, I'm gonna go paint the spot," like on the weekend? You're like, "Don't do it, bro.
I mean, I've
Don't do
seen
it."
other people. It's a very well known graph spot, and like, look, any abandoned spot where
Yeah.
there's graph, like
Yeah.
shit's going down. I've been in bandos where people are stripping stolen cars or just doing
Yeah.
all kinds of
Shit.
crazy shit, which is also the fun part of graph is like I've
Yeah.
seen
Yeah.
shit that like people,
Yeah. Yeah. Most people don't see what we see. I've
yeah.
always said the best part about graph is that you can literally go and like live on someone else's sofa that you like hardly know, and they'll take you to see the inner workings of the city that you don't know most of the time and figure out something no one else ever sees, which is
Yeah,
awesome.
I don't know any other community, I guess, or subculture. I could be wrong, where you could have never met someone and travel to some part of the world and like you said, be like, "Hey, I'm coming to South Africa." Like you and I had never met. I mean, we
Yeah.
talked on the internet a little bit, but like
But
I literally came and stayed at your house on a mattress on the floor, and it
yeah.
was like, no, and there was nothing weird about it. It's
No,
like,
no. We're gonna go paint and see some shit. Let's go, bro. We're friends. Cool.
and I've done
So
that
we
many
have loads of
times.
mutual friends, so that's cool. It's like whatever.
Yeah, it
Um,
definitely helps when you have the mutual friends, but I've had people where very loose
they just
mutual
come over.
connection, if any, and it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, let's grab a burger and go paint this tunnel. Like, all right, cool.
Sweet. I wanted to ask you, like, would you ever come back here? Do you think, like, how
I
does
would
Europe
love.
compare for you? Like,
No, dude. I mean, Europe's cool, and you know, I don't think you could really compare the two, like culturally and just everything. I would love to come back there, and
and go to the
we've
Kruger
had
Park, like the
talks.
actual like wildlife
We've
place,
had,
because I took in a very small
yeah.
sort of wildlife
No,
trip.
I
You know,
know. My lady jokes about that all the time because she went
Kruger
to
Park is like the thing, dude. I know.
yeah, she's like went to the real one and whatever. But no, I
Yeah,
would love to get back. We've talked about it. It's definitely something we want to do. I mean, obviously from a logistical standpoint, I mean, it took me, I believe it was 24 hours of actual traveling,
yeah,
between layovers,
yeah.
plane planes
I
and
mean,
to get
my
there. But
producer, he just took 26 hours from Chicago to Chicago, and when I went to Canada, it was just 26 hours.
yeah, so it's
You did a
you know,
pretty good chrome for 20 minutes out the airport, dude.
yeah.
After 24 hours of travel. Fuck.
Well, I think
It's
the
like that muscle
adrenaline of
memory.
like just being
I'm
there
in
and actually
Africa.
being there
Yeah,
was wild. But
yeah,
no, I would love to come back. I would love to see more of
yeah.
not just from a graffiti, but just, to do again more like
Yeah, like when
tourist
I go
stuff.
to
The
Cape Town,
food, I gotta tell you,
yeah,
I pretty sure you guys don't use like preservatives and that the food is
I'd be
like more
surprised.
natural and
Some
it's
stuff's
some of the best
MSG as
food.
fuck.
It's some of the best food I've ever had.
Probably more meat than you've ever eaten, like ever. Lots of people tell me this. Like when I had Germans here, they were like, "We ate more meat in 1 week than we've eaten in like 2 months."
Yeah, it was a lot of meat. It was a lot of meat, but
Yeah,
I love meat, so
yeah. So
it was
what?
good. Everything was good. Even the pizza was surprisingly good.
Hmm. Interesting. Good to know. I'm going to move on now to a couple of our sort of like more wacky questions. We have a segment on this podcast called "Questions from Toys," um, and we got a question from someone from France this time. Let me just pull it up here. Mm, I got to find it, but basically, oh, he says this is from a guy from France called Flavor. He says, "Can I use masking tape for making sharper lines? I've seen some
No.
guys on Instagram do it and it looks super crisp."
So it's funny you said I talk
Because we
with
spoke about this
Gesser.
when you were here.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
talk with Gesser about this quite a bit. You, some other people. I mean, look, if you're doing a paid commission mural
Mm-hmm.
project, use whatever tools or means necessary to execute to the client's liking. If you're doing graffiti, that is a supposed to be. I think it's maybe with these newer
Freehand.
generations lost its way, but it's supposed to be a freedom of expression. It's supposed to be a very loose, like free moving. I, I mean, there's some super talented people out there and they've gotten very technical with it, which I think
I think you
is
told me that there are
cool.
some areas of America that if you use tape, you just get beat the fuck up.
Oh yeah, it'll get gone over immediately, zero respect because
Yeah.
it's not graffiti at that point. You're turning it into something else. So to answer the question, it's what are you trying to accomplish, But you're not going to get good if you're using tape. Your
Mm-hmm.
end
Yeah.
result might look, I
Yeah.
guess, decent, but
It's a good answer.
you know, if you're trying to master the art, you got to learn how to make a line look like it was done with tape without it, you know? But
The
no,
next,
tape should not
nah,
be
just no, right?
even in the only time tape is acceptable in graffiti is in the States if you're painting freight trains and you need
Ah,
to cover the numbers and certain
great.
language so that your piece doesn't get stamped
Doesn't get
over.
stamped. Yeah,
That's the only
that's
time tape
that's the best answer ever. That's such a good answer, bro.
should be used.
For real. Um, our next question is: if you could ban one color out of all the colors that exist forever, what would it be for yourself and others? Don't say
Mm.
chrome. The
No, I
person that
mean,
says chrome, I throw this laptop out the fucking window and end this podcast. It's never coming back.
I mean, I love colors. I mean, there isn't any one particular color that I
Do you like
hate.
brown?
I do. I forget about brown a lot, but
Uh,
I think if used in the right con
we can
context,
say on a
contrast,
technicality that you could ban like bone white, like a little bit off white, something like that. Uh,
there's certain yellows that I would ban purely because they don't cover for
Coverage
shit.
sucks. Oh yeah,
And
that's what our
there's like
last
some
person
of
on the podcast
those.
said. Yep, they
Yeah,
said
but I
doesn't
love
cover.
yellow. Yellow outlines are one of my favorite, but you got to know which yellows
Okay, so
to
it's
to
impossible for you
use.
to answer this question. You're gonna have to get back to me, I guess.
Yeah,
Just ban
I'll
black,
have
dude.
to.
It's okay. We don't need it. I love it, but
I
we don't need
went
it.
I went like 5 years without doing a black outline on a
Yeah, yeah.
piece. Not a
There's people that
chrome,
always say
but
this. Hey, I'm not gonna do black. We're just gonna do like a darker tone, and
yeah.
everyone has challenges for themselves. It's cool, but black is great. You see the panels that run in Europe? So much black. It's great. It's the best contrast.
Yeah.
Um. Okay, so I'm gonna get back to you on banner color, but I'd say maybe some yellow. Maybe. Um. My next question is: we have a segment here called "Fuck, Mary Kill." Do you know what that is?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So actually, we had a fuck, Mary kill for you, but I feel like I want to change it because I know there are two caps that you use quite often, and I think it would be better that I change to this. So like, fuck, Mary kill, New York fat cap, Lego cap, okay, and Rusto cap, Rusto standard cap,
Like stock tip cap.
stock tip cap, yeah. Because
So
I know that you love New York fat cap, and I know that you love Lego cap too. So, are you gonna kill
I
one of them? That's what I want.
if it I would kill the Rusto stock cap I would marry the Lego because it's
Really?
more versatile. Yeah, and I would fuck the fat cat because the
Why?
Lego you
Why would you fuck the fat cat? It's like
because it's a
it's
fat
fatter
cap.
because it's
It's
fat. You don't
fun.
like fat
It's
stuff, or what?
it's
Is it like?
it's it's fun. It's it's fun and cool, but like as far as like I think a Lego's more versatile long term, you know?
Okay.
And
Some people say they're the same
vers
cap. It's
they're
not true though.
similar, but yeah,
No,
it's not true.
The Lego cap is way less fat. So it doesn't do circles as well.
Yeah.
Our actual questions for fuck Mary kill for you were fuck Mary kill Africa, Europe, and America. Tough after the
Oof.
election, hey.
I was just gonna say modern day America because I'd probably kill it the way it's going right
USA,
now.
really? Okay.
And
Just fuck Africa because it's like
you're the
everyone fucks
here's here's the thing
Africa.
is Europe and Africa both being continents and the States being a country, you know, uh
Yeah, it's okay, man. You don't have to love your country. I mean, you probably do to a degree, but I don't want to get deep into. You also don't have to answer because I already made you answer the caps question.
no, I would probably as of today, ah, that's just tough. I'd maybe kill the United States. I'd probably fuck Africa and maybe marry Europe.
Yeah, I
But
think that's good because Europe, you can just go anywhere and do anything, and like, well, there's a lot of opportunity, I guess. And Africa is like, it's just fuckable, dude. It's like a good it's a good in and out place. Let's say that. One of our other questions on here is that you ask me something. I'm thinking of taking this question out because the questions I've been asked, people keep giving me fuck Mary kills, and like I had one where I had Mad Sea Lumet and Neck Face. Imagine that, rough. Anyhow,
that's
if you
tough.
want to ask me something, you can. I'm interested if you have anything you want to know about, like South Africa, for example, um, or if I ever shut up. That's another one. The answer's no.
Well, okay, so yeah, I guess what other outside of Joburg, what other cities and or I guess countries, I don't know which would be easier to answer, have, if any, a strong graffiti scene in Africa?
In Africa, outside of South Africa, I'm not sure. What I do know is I know of a few people painting in Angola. I have a very good friend who comes from France who paints in Angola. I think that you know what, we have a guy who came from South Africa, um, called Luna, and he wrote a book that's about South African graffiti, and then followed it up with another book that's more about graffiti in other parts of South Africa. I mean, other parts of Africa. And I think that we will probably have him on the show at some point and talk about more about that. But I don't really know. We don't see much here of other graffiti. I recently saw a friend of mine who does like portraits and stuff. His name's Bongs. He went to I think maybe Ivory Coast and painted with a lot of people, and it was like a big jam. People coming from all over the place, but South Africa probably has the biggest scene that I can think of. I've had friends go to Egypt and see nothing. I've been to Tanzania and seen nothing. I've been to Zimbabwe. My mom is from Zimbabwe, and I've painted like 5 pieces. I'm probably the most up in the whole of Zimbabwe. Like there's nothing, dude, nothing. It's
So I
really
guess
like
my next question would be, why is it so prevalent in South Africa but not other parts of Africa?
not sure. Um, I almost want to say that other parts of Africa are way more like tribal in a weird way. I'd like to say that probably South Africa, because we had like a back in like colonial times, we had way more like um Europeans like coming to, because I mean the way that Johannesburg is set up is, I could tell you the whole history of Johannesburg is because the Dutch came to Cape Town and set up like a big base basically, and they were sending ships back and forth from from Europe to Africa basically, and trading lots of different things. And I think that just the sort of like maybe like the Portuguese were coming down the east coast and trading with Africans and stuff like this. Then the British came and colonized everything, and it was just like this mass amount of people taking over this like wild place. And they established their capital sort of on the more northern part of South Africa, um, and it's just stayed like that. So the people that are here are like a broader mix of like Europeans, mostly Europeans. Whereas I think the other parts of Africa, like the more northern and northwestern parts, are more like French territories and like smaller territories. Like this place was like fought over, dude. It's like we have a lot more economic stuff going for us here because this is where gold came from, and people came here to get gold. Yeah, it's I don't know. This is a complicated question. Sorry, I went a bit deep on that.
Yeah, yeah. So
I need a piss, dude. I gotta get out of here, man. Sorry, I just remembered my stove's on. I'm just kidding. I don't know. That's a
yeah, I
complicated question.
actually
I don't know. I don't know. I think that the other parts of Africa are way poorer and way more tribal. That's going to sound bad. But here in South Africa, like you've been to South Africa, it's not just a dusty shithole. It's like we have roads, we have Wi Fi, we have fucking people doing stuff, doing business, doing commerce, like doing stuff with overseas. There's a lot of international, like, progress, if I can say that. Whereas I think a lot of the other places just stick to themselves. So it's not to say that there isn't graffiti. It's just to say that here we get a lot more access to media and you know influence, I guess, from Europe
yeah. No,
and
it
the
makes
States.
sense.
Yeah,
Makes sense.
yeah. Sorry, I went on a rant. Just gonna
No,
cut
it's
the
all good. I actually just thought of
yeah, yeah, something on that. Yeah.
no, no, go ahead, go ahead.
No, no, no. You go ahead.
Yeah, I actually just thought of another good story, but I think the story I told maybe relates better to the whole like talking about like dangers of South paint, but the other story is just kind of a fun story, but it's all good.
No, tell me, man. Tell me. I'm interested.
So I was because I think this went down after I saw you, so you probably don't know this story, but I was with Chems. I'm not gonna say where we were. It's probably not that hard to figure it out, but we had heard about an abandoned nuclear
Do it.
power plant,
Mm,
and it was never active, right? So it was
mm.
like
No
80% built,
Chernobyl
and
shit.
then yeah, yeah, and then the
Yeah.
project got axed, and people had painted it, right? It's not like we are the first ones, but not a lot of people have painted it. And we were like, yo, we need to go paint this thing. So it's in the middle of nowhere, and you have zero reason to be there. And what makes it even more interesting is the power plant is connected to a prison. So
Mm.
essentially, to paint
Fucking weird.
this,
That's
you
active?
have, well, the prison is active, the power plant is
Power
not.
plant's not. Yeah. Okay.
But like,
Wow.
we actually had to break into prison
No.
to paint this power plant, and we didn't like understand that or know that.
No.
And it's super scary. You basically have to like cross an open road in hopes that you're not spotted. And we're doing this daytime, and we get in successfully. We didn't we painted, but we didn't quite get to paint kind of where we wanted because there's workers, there's patrols. They don't come inside,
Still
I guess,
sketches you
unless
out
like
though.
you're spotted, but um it was
Wow.
very sketchy for sure. So we paint and we get out, and I was like, hey, we need to take a very roundabout way to get back to the car. And we kind of checked on the car through the woods, and we saw that there were cops like waiting
Oh
at our
shit.
car.
Oh shit.
So we were like, oh boy. So we
Where'd you come from? We
like
just broke out of jail.
yeah, yeah. So we ditch everything in the woods. And then we walked even further to make it look like we were coming back from a completely different way. And thankfully, they weren't in the cars. Must have been out looking for us, but they left a note on our car. And the
Oh,
note was like, hey, this is like whatever sheriff's department. Please give us a call when you can.
you're in a
Uh,
dodgy area.
yeah, like you shouldn't be here. Like, what are you doing here? Something which we thought was hilarious. Like, oh yeah, we'll call you right away
Yeah,
and
yeah,
like
yeah.
let you know what we were doing. Um, and then
Oh shit.
thankfully, we were able to get in and get out of there. But I guess it's the story that maybe doesn't translate as well when you tell it versus like,
No, I
which
think
I
that's
think is
pretty
any
funny, man.
story,
I would have kept that
like to
note and like called them like
experience.
every night. I mean, like, yo, I got this note on my car. Just seen this message
Yeah,
from you, and it was like 3 months ago. What's up?
but again, it's one of these things that like when you travel, it's like ignorance is bliss, right? Like I've
Yeah.
painted other spots where I just kind of like find on my
Yeah,
own in whatever way, and then I paint, and then someone's like, "Yo, you painted
dude.
that spot?" I remember some other spot I painted one time, and the feeling was off. Like I was like, "Wow, the graffiti there was nothing recent. Like there was grass there, but it was all very old, and the place was very clean." And it just felt off. But I was like, well, this is a great spot. And it was at the entrance to like a state park hiking trail. So like people were coming the entire time, but we were just
Just out of
enough out
reach.
of sight. But like a dog like came over like it,
Shit.
and we painted it. We did big chromes there, and then afterwards, people were like, "I can't believe you painted that spot." They're like during the day on like a because we didn't know the like whatever history or oh
Yeah,
there's
yeah. Oh,
a state trooper that lives right there, like all this crazy stuff. And like
that's the adventure
but
of it. You find out.
sometimes yes, it can work both for and against you. So
It's
that
so
time it worked
crazy.
out. But anyways,
I think
yeah, that's
I'm actually going to call it there and say we've run out of time. But I want to. Last thing is, do you have any shout outs to give to people, even the kids or anyone? You don't have to shout out anyone.
no,
It's
I
fine.
mean, several people already got some shout outs, but definitely want to shout out
No, they didn't. We're
NBC.
gonna edit those names out. Rio, we're editing your name out, dude.
Or just bleep it out.
Yeah,
Twick.
yeah,
Twick gets bleeped out.
yeah.
But no, definitely got to shout out NBC. All the homies, Rio for sure, formal shout out. Hell's rest in peace, and then Chems, Guess, and Style, all the homies. Too many people to name, but anybody who's
Tenso.
helped along the way, Tenso. I mean, the list could go on and on and on, but
Yeah, I don't know. Your family, your wife, maybe. I don't know. Your dog, whoever you want, your goldfish. I don't know what pets you keep.
none right now.
Okay, cool. I actually, you know what? Like, I have one last thing to ask. Is like, what are you planning on doing now in the future? Like, what is your sort of like next style progression or something like this? Just I don't know. Do you have something? Because I don't know. There's always a way forward, right?
Yeah, there's the saying, if you're not growing, you're dying.
Mm,
And I hate when people say that, like, oh, they've mastered graffiti or whatever. I mean, yeah, maybe you've painted, uh, there's many different elements to graph. There's your actual graph, your style, and your letters and colors and this, but there's also like, okay, where are you painting? Are you painting the same? I can't stand, like, I'm not gonna name names, but like I see
I
on
know what you mean.
Instagram, there's super
The same wall
talented
over and over. Yeah,
artists or writer. I don't call them writers because if you're just painting the same
yeah.
two legal walls over and over again, I think that's great. And if
If you're
from
learning, then
a
cool. But
from an artist, but like don't call yourself a graffiti writer if you're painting,
yeah,
some boards in your
because we like to
backyard
get
every
up and
day.
out. Yeah,
Yes. So
and
to me,
experience,
there's
travel.
always progression, whether it's the where or the what. Like, what are you painting? Where are you painting? And then what are you doing to evolve your style, you know?
What I like
So
is
I'm
that
always,
I painted this, and this is even a different discussion about things that have been done many times. Like, I painted this 3D that's upside down and back to front, so it reflects the correct way in a reflection piece. And you did it too with a chrome. You posted it the other day, and I was looking at it and I was going, "Fucking cool, man! I did that too. What the fuck? It's so rad. Like this is like it's pushing something, man. You push yourself to do something and change something, and you know, when are
well,
we going
and
to
I would
see
like
one
to,
of those, but fucking big, like a big
yeah.
chrome one with a reflection? I
Oh,
want
I
to see
did
that.
one. I did
What?
do one.
Like a really big one? No, one of those really
Yes,
big ones.
I'll
No
send you
shit.
the photo of it at right after
That's the best
this.
thing about graffiti is someone's always one upping you
But
to do
dude, here
better.
I just want to like
Yeah.
clarify one thing too that you just kind of touched upon is like I do things and try new things. Like a lot of things have been done already.
Yep.
Like it's
Yep.
very hard, in my opinion, at this stage
Force
to
fields.
do something that no one's done. But there's nothing wrong with like
No.
trying
Personal
something that
progression.
you personally haven't done. Like I'm not over here
Of course.
claiming I the first one
No.
or I invented this. Like I'm just trying different things. So like I don't think the mentality of looking at things been like, oh, that's been done, so I'm not gonna do it. Like
Oh
if
no,
it's
no.
something
I mean,
you've never done,
I know people have done sticker stuff as well. I was just trying to push it in my own way, for
no,
example, I know
exactly.
that people have done arrows. I've seen some funny arrows over the years. Like arrows is a whole different discussion. Like let's try and do different arrows. Crazy
Dude,
how many different things you can do in this thing that we
arrows
do.
is its own game for sure.
Yeah, so it's really interesting. I mean, I like what you're saying though. Is like don't don't like not do something because it's been done. Just do it so you know how to do it, basically, I guess, or like experience it in your own way. I mean, that's why we're doing it, right?
Also, like be sure
Personal
you're doing
experience.
it for yourself and not for the internet. You
Oh,
know, like do
yeah, man.
things like, I don't post everything I do and
No.
there's a lot of experimental stuff and just just be sure you're doing it for the right reasons, I guess.
Yeah, that's very good words of wisdom, I have to say. And I'm going to end on that and say thank you so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate it, dude.
I appreciate you having me, man. It was great catching up.
If you guys want to follow along, you can follow our journey either on Offline Guys Podcast on Instagram, or you can email your questions and thoughts, ideas to offlineguyspodcast@gmail.com. And we're available on all of your favorite streaming services. That includes Apple, Spotify, and YouTube.